Hello everyone. Today, we will be discussing about general software testing questions and answers with tips and some examples. Let's dive straight in. Why choose software testing as a career? Your career choice is not something you do for a living, it is something that consumes a major chunk of your lifetime, and makes a deep impact on who you are as a person. So, with your answer for these questions, interviewer would want to find out about your personality, more so to know the type of person they will be hiring. The interviewer is seeking to understand your underlying motivations for selecting this career. It is also a good question for the interviewer, to learn how much planning and thought went into your career selection. So, when you prepare for the answer, there are some points to emphasize, like highlighting the positive influences or passion, focusing on your relevant skills and character traits. Emphasize your interest, stress your interest in the field or industry as a whole. Here are some quick tips to avoid mistakes while giving answers. Do not focus solely on monetary compensation, do not appear nervous or unknowledgeable, and do not present the position as a backup option. Now let's prepare for the answer. Software testing is like solving a logical puzzle. You need to think creatively on how to break the software to test its end-to-end functionality. It's quite complex, challenging, and with these challenges, we get chances to experiment our ability towards our goals. If you are a logical thinker, like to solve puzzles, help others, and taking on challenges, then you can frame an answer for the question similar to this. I entered college for bachelor's in computer science and was still undecided on my major. During my bachelor I took a course, software testing. As time went, I found it's interesting because testing is kind of solving a puzzle, and I am passionate about solving logical puzzles since my childhood. I also love to help others, take on challenges, and I'm very eager to learn new technologies every day. Since then, I decided to convert my passion and interest into software testing career. This career gives me an opportunity for growth, chances to experiment, and opens the door for too many other career paths. It's also a challenging, secure, and satisfactory career. Since then, I've worked for 2 different Fortune 500 companies and I'm looking to continue my career along this path. Moving on to the next, how did you add value to the organization you've worked for? Remember, software testing is much more than just finding bugs. To explain how you brought value for the previous companies you worked for, you must showcase yourself as not just a tester but someone who goes beyond their limitations or label. Best way to answer this question is to research the company you're interviewing for. Research the company, role, and industry thoroughly. Through this process, you can discuss your achievements while showcasing your knowledge of what the firm does. You are also able to tie in your experience and skills with what the job calls for. Here's an example on how to answer this question. I'm a team player. I think the most important thing is to deliver beyond expectations. I helped with whatever was needed, helped the product team with document requirements, helped developers with reproducing bugs, tested documents and reporting, or going the extra mile to complete testing. I like to think out of the box when I'm testing and focus on our consumers. I didn't just look only at the available requirements. I thought about how the customers would use our products and what the competition was doing, to add valuable feedback to our product team. Here's the next question. What is the difference between quality assurance, quality control, and testing? Almost every interview you attend for software testing will have this question. Good thing about it is, you wouldn't have to add anything extraordinary to the answer since the definitions are universal. The reason interviewers ask this question is to make sure that the candidate is fully aware of the concept. Make sure your answer doesn't sound like a memorized definition. When pointing out the differences, make it sound as if you're not answering the question but more like explaining it to someone. Let's go through these definitions. Quality assurance follows the process of planning and defining the way of monitoring and implementing the quality processes within a team and organization. This method defines and sets the quality standards of the projects. Quality control is the process of finding defects and providing suggestions to improve the quality of the software. The methods used by quality control are usually established by quality assurance. It is the primary responsibility of the testing team to implement quality control. Testing is the process of finding defects or bugs. It validates whether the software built by the development team meets the requirements set by the user, and the standards set by the organization. Here, the main focus is on finding bugs, and the testing teams work as a quality gatekeeper. On to the next question. Assume you have a test plan with over 1,000 test cases. How would you make sure what should be automated and what to test manually? Even though it may seem like there could only be one answer for this question, that is in fact not the case here. There is no one-size-fits-all type of answer here. Whenever a tester runs into this scenario, some logical thinking is always necessary. Before answering the question, do mention these approach points. This shows that you are putting the logical thinking behind the answer by observing the scenario first. Starting off, decide at what point in your release pipeline or process you can run different types of tests. Decide how the tests will be ran, and how the results will be processed. Most of this will depend on your organization's software architecture. The main objective behind this question is to make sure that you have the capability of observing the scenario and taking the logical actions. Here's an example of what your answer should look like, depending on the scenario provided. In such situations, I will focus on test case priority and the feasibility of automation for the test case in question. There can be many other things that can make a difference, like the complicated scenarios which are tedious and take a lot of time in manual execution, the test cases missed in the past, the parts of the application that need regression testing, the test cases which are hard to automate, the features which are still under development. If certain parts of the application are about to be changed, I recommend not to start with automated testing for these cases, the test cases that are part of explorative testing as well as assessing the user experience. And so on. Let's move on to the next one. When should you stop testing? Remember, testing is a never-ending process which makes it almost impossible to decide when you should stop testing. Many modern software applications are so complex, and run in such an interdependent environment, that complete testing can never be done. In order to answer this question, you'll have to regard some factors which we'll discuss with the examples. Let's take a look at this example answer. As we know, testing is a never-ending process. There's no such thing as a completed testing given how complex these new software applications are and as well as the interdependent environment they run in. Keeping that in mind, these are some of the factors I look for when determining when to stop testing. Starting with the obvious, deadlines, release deadlines, testing deadlines, etc., test cases completed with certain percentage passed. When the test budget is depleted. Coverage of code or functionality or when requirements reach a specified point. When bug rate falls below a certain level. And, when beta or alpha testing period ends. These factors help me understand the point I'm at with my testing, and decide where I should stop. Here's another question. What is risk analysis? It is one of the key interview questions. Almost all companies ask you this in one way or another. Risk analysis is the process of identifying risks in applications, and prioritizing them to test. A risk is a potential for loss or damage to an organization from materialized threats. Risk analysis attempts to identify all the risks, and then quantify the severity of the risks. A threat is a possible damaging event. If it occurs, it exploits vulnerability in the security of a computer-based system. Software risk is measured during testing by using code analyzers, that can assess the code for both risks within the code itself, and between units that must interact inside the application. The greatest software risk presents itself in these interactions. Complex applications using multiple frameworks and languages can present flaws that are extremely difficult to find and tend to cause the largest software disruptions. Here's an example answer. I believe, risk analysis is very essential for software testing. It's an important approach to testing, where software risk is analyzed and measured. Traditional software testing normally looks at relatively straightforward function testing, for example, 2 + 2 = 4, whereas, a software risk analysis looks at code violations that presents a threat to the stability, security, or performance of the code. The best practice I follow is that Items with higher risk values should be tested early and often. Items with lower risk value can be tested later, or not at all. I also use this approach with defects. Next we'll be looking at, why is it performed? Why perform risk analysis? This following question is almost a guarantee. Once the interviewer understands your stand on risk analysis, they'll want to know, why would a tester perform it? Well, one of the main factors is cost. Finding defects in production is expensive. All software projects benefit from risk analysis, even non-critical software. Using risk analysis at the beginning of a project highlights the potential problem areas. This helps developers and managers to mitigate the risks. The tester uses the results of risk analysis to select the most crucial tests. Let's look at this example answer. The key reason why people perform risk analysis during software testing is to better understand what can really go wrong with an application before it goes into production. A risk analysis performed during software testing helps to identify areas where software flaws could result in serious issues in production. By identifying areas of concern early, developers are able to proactively remediate and reduce the overall risk of a production defect. Implementing risk analysis in software testing typically requires a detailed evaluation of the source code to identify how it interacts with other components of a complete application. This evaluation looks at the various code components and maps how the code interacts. With this map, transactions can be identified and evaluated. Architectural and structural rules can be applied to the map to understand where software flaws lie, and which ones are the most important given the transactions flowing through the application. Let's move on to the next question. Tell me about some specific challenge that you have faced. No matter the field of work, there will always be some sort of situational questions that'll be thrown at you. As you can see, there are many ways to ask a scenario-based question, but the goal behind these questions remain the same, to see if you are ready to go that extra mile, to perform what is beyond your job description. We'll be discussing the tips and examples on how to answer these questions. Before we get into the examples, here's a tip to answer situation-based questions. Use the problem, solution, benefit formula. Meaning, your answer should contain these three major points: a problem you faced, your solution to the problem, and the benefit it provided to your employers. Now let's implicate that formula in our example answer. Starting with the problem. I had to work with another tester, who complained a lot about our projects. The solution was that, I took the time to learn about his personal life. It turned out, he was going through a tough divorce. Once I got to know him, he was in fact, a great co-worker. It benefited the employer because, we worked so well together. After that, we both were the most efficient testing pair in the company. It's that easy to answer these scenario-based questions, just by using the problem, solution, benefit formula. Here's an example of a wrong answer. I had to work with a really difficult tester. Eventually I was able to get transferred to another department, and get some real work done. Let's look at our last question here. What are some possible causes of a project's failure? Your answer to this question reveals how you react to failure, and can be a way to show how you adapt to change. Failures occur within software testing, and the interviewer might want to know your understanding of the issues that could be raised during a software testing project. Consider speaking about a failure you've encountered in a previous job. Here's an example on how this question should be answered. I've encountered plenty of issues during past software testing projects. Many of the failures included time and budget limitations. Rarely has the testing environment been set up improperly, but that has happened before as well. The testing environment can always be fixed, but sometimes a limited budget or time constraints is what can lead to the failure of the project. Time management has been essential for every project. To wrap it up, we covered the general questions and answers for software testing, including tips and examples for framing your answers. We covered why choose software testing as a career. How did you add value to the organization you've worked for? What is the difference between quality assurance, quality control, and testing? How to make sure what should be automated and what to test manually, In a test plan with over 1,000 test cases. When should you stop testing? What is risk analysis? And why is it performed? Scenario-based questions, and what are some possible causes of a project's failure? One last tip before you go. Remember to develop the practice of writing up details about each project as you finish working on it. Draft your answers as short, engaging stories. Find an interview coach, and practice being interviewed. And lastly, do a retrospective on the interview, and use it to update your project sheets and draft answers. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave us a like, share with people who may benefit from it, as well as comment below what other topics you'd like us to cover, and please do subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon for notifications on our latest videos. We offer it training, staffing and services. Contact us at 847-350-9034 for a free career consulting session. See you soon.